Well, here it is. Now, I have been consistently reading since way back when I made a video saying that one of the things I do is book reviews. As part of one of the YouTubers, LazyGorillaz, did this challenge, 50 books in a year. So I have been consistently reading, but there have been no videos. I started my reading in March, and I'm up to about 28, I think, books. I'd have to look. I gotta look again. Anyway, it doesn't matter. This book by William R. Forstchen, I think is how you pronounce it, 1 Second After. Now, I don't know how many of you have read this, and I've never read it before. The freakiest thing about this book, even though I know all about EMPs, one of the reasons why I try to maintain at least a year's worth of food and water for 2 people, at least, for the very least. I'm probably approaching more than that now, but anyway, I digress. One of the videos I did was a dream that I had of nukes being launched from ships, and I never really thought anything of it until I had the remembrance of that dream come back to me, and I decided to Google and found a whole article that was done by the Associated Press about storage tank shipping containers being made into missile launchers that the Russians had created. And although it didn't hint on the shipping containers in this book, the way the attack came was nukes being launched from ships. And that really kind of kept my interest pretty strong. Because I mean, the one thing I'd say about this book is it's much better written than most of the doomsday prepping type books that are out there. I mean, I love the book Patriots, but it was excruciating to read when you're used to reading a book that is well written. And although I appreciate the book because the Patriots book is a wealth of information, because he was also wrapping up instructions into a narrative, which I think was kind of clever. And he would be able to share information in his narrative without being like labeled a terrorist, because hey, it's part of a story. That being said, I mean, most of the books are pretty poorly written. This was actually pretty well done. It focuses on the reluctant leader, John, who is kind of a former military man that never really saw real combat and became a professor because of his, and kind of got forced into leaving his military career to take care of his dying wife who had breast cancer. And that's the backstory, so to speak. And he's got 2 daughters, 1 daughter with diabetes, which is the youngest, 12-year-old, and I'm not sure, I know it's a young teenage daughter named Elizabeth, and their 2 dogs. And basically it's about an EMP attack, the electromagnetic pulse attack. I'm sure most of you know all about it. I'll read an excerpt for those of you who don't. So basically, electromagnetic pulse is explosion, or if it was an explosion caused by a nuclear weapon over the continental United States. Here it's saying would have a devastating consequence on the country. The detonation of a nuclear weapon produces high-energy gamma radiation that travels radially away from the burst center. When the detonation occurs at high altitudes greater than 25 miles, the gamma rays directed towards the Earth encounter the atmosphere, where they interact with air molecules to produce positive ions and recoil electrons called Compton electrons, after the physicist who was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1927 for his discovery of the Compton effect. The gamma radiation is interacted with the air molecules, producing a charge separation as the Compton recoil electrons are ejected and leave behind the more massive positive ions. The Earth's magnetic field's interaction with the Compton recoil electrons causes charge acceleration, which further radiates an electromagnetic field as an instantaneous electromagnetic pulse. In short, it fries everything that has to do with electricity. All of your everything that's not shielded correctly, radios, you name it, cars, everything is just going to die. It's going to shut off. You'll be flying on your vacation to Florida, and next thing you know, your plane's falling out of the sky because all the electronics are fried. You're driving home from work, all of a sudden your car just shuts off. One of the many reasons why those who are watching this that don't prep, why many of us have what's called the bug out bag. Anyway, back to the book. I thought it was well done. I thought the only character I thought was pretty useless was the Michaela character, which is kind of the conscience of the story. You know, the witness conscience of the story that flows through. I think it could have been excluded. I think it took away from the weight of the story. The way the storyline is interwoven about the main character and kind of made him a flawed character. A little bit flawed. He still was a little bit superhero-like, but for the most part, they focus on the fact that, you know, he's a child with diabetes. And anybody who has diabetes knows you can't live too long without insulin. And you can't really keep insulin cold without electricity or refrigerator, at least a constant maintaining temperature. So that dynamic kind of played a pretty good role to connect the reader emotionally to his situation. And plus, having already lost his wife, which is what brought him to the town and becoming a professor in the college that he was working before this whole event transpired, sets up a pretty good backdrop story that allows you to feel for the character. And I thought, I mean, the ending was pretty, I have to admit, I was moved. And his use of using everyday objects for sentimentality, something we all do, where you have that one item that, say, your mother had that passed away, and when you see that item, it brings you back to that memory. And he cleverly uses that for a pretty solid emotional impact. And kind of one highlight I thought was kind of interesting. There's a lot of good highlights, but I kind of focused on this one. How John, the main character, is saying, "Damn, our enemies who did this to us, they knew us well. They knew human nature too well, and just how fragile civilization is, and how tough it is to defend it. Something we forgot." And I thought that was interesting, you know. One of the things that they kept saying every time they had to do something or witness something that was atrocious, they would keep going back, "Well, this is America, damn it." And I laughed at that because I think people so wrap themselves up in the flag that I think it's going to be their undoing if something does happen to this country. And me, myself included. I almost mentally prepare myself that if this does happen or if something happens to the country, that I won't allow that to completely make me unravel. That's because my God is Jesus, you know. So, I mean, that's my biggest focus. And I never, ever let anything go beyond that. So that's my own personal way of gathering strength when I kind of think hypothetically, man, because the Constitution is something I hold dear and I love history. And to think that all those sacrifices that were done by the people before us, and it just fizzles to this apathetic end where people are watching Jersey Shore and trying to head to the latest concert. Meanwhile, we have barbarians at the gates all around us. And one thing I found I don't know if it'll spoil the book. You know what, I'm going to just say it because I don't care if it spoils the book, because it was something I had always thought, that the people that will come to help us might not come to help us at all. They might camp in and start to help and then never leave. just to occupy us, so to speak, and our moments of weakness. And it's not the day and age where you have a stripe and a helmet with a marking telling you who's attacking you anymore. Those days are gone. And I think our enemies noticed that with Iraq, how hard it was to deal with insurgents and dealing with people who you can't tell the difference who is who. You know, there's no markings to tell that guy's military. And I think that was found in Vietnam, too, where, you know, little children would be used to deliver a grenade. You didn't know where it was coming from. And they're going to use that. They're going to use that to their strength. And I hope that this doesn't happen, but I recommend this book. I think it's pretty powerful. And if there's anybody in your family or anybody that doesn't really believe in at least having some form of preparation, I mean, it'd be kind of hard-pressed to get someone to want to do a year's worth of food and water, but at least try to get friends and family and people you know to get to at least 2 to 3 weeks, bare minimum. I mean, that really should be your goal. You're never going to convince them to go beyond that, so at least they're a little bit, you know, set up. I mean, if everybody had 2 to 3 weeks, I mean, I don't know. And I would include this book. You know, maybe that would help. You never know. That is until Jerry Springer comes back on. All right, guys. Peace out. Take care. God bless.
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.